Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Me and my brother just got back from the movies. Got up pretty early to check this out just because I got work here in a couple hours, so I just gotta eat my lunch and then get ready to go. And also given just the timing of just everything, this today especially being 4th of July. We weren't gonna have much time, over the weekend, so we got up early to check this out, and yeah, so I have some thoughts for you guys. So let's get into it. That film that we're going to be talking about today is Young Washington, which was directed by Joe Irwin. That's how you say his name. Just reviewing some of his credits, he most notably has directed films such as I Can Only Imagine, also a film called I Still Believe, The Jesus Music, as well as American Underdog, also Jesus Revolution. It's a very faith-based type filmmaker, very Christian-based filmmaker. This is distributed through Angel Studios, and this is, of course, a biopic about the early days of George Washington. And this stars William Franklin Miller, who I believe is in his feature debut here, if I'm not mistaken, alongside some notable faces: Kelsey Grammer, Andy Serkis, and Ben Kingsley. And as the story goes, as I just said up front, this is dealings of the early life of George Washington. And he is very ambitious. He wants to become a soldier. He wants to help. He wants to, really, strive for a specific purpose. Because in his home, he doesn't feel that he has that. And he really wants to, take part in something much bigger and really make a big difference. And he finds his way into the British Army to some extent, and finds himself in a position of power. And we see how he handles that power, and he grows into maturing into that power, and ultimately learning a lot about the fundamentals of said, wisdom and power, and leading with selflessness and not in arrogance or selfishness in the face of, war and battles. There's a specific point in leadership that needs to be made, and the film explores, the fundamentals of surviving such a thing through a specific, leadership that is required, and just the fundamentals of what makes a good leader. So just to be clear, I do not know a lot of history. I think that might be, taken a certain way, but I don't know a lot about, American history. History is just not something that I really cared for when I was in high school, to be honest. I mean, I liked it enough, but I never really cared enough to really explore. So my brother actually knows a lot more about history than I do. So he actually had a lot more to say about, the historical points in the movie, which to his point of view, it seems that some of it was accurate, whereas some of it was maybe not so much, at least according to what I heard from him. Excuse me, the light's also fucked up for some reason. I don't know why the lighting is all fucked up. Anyways, but yeah, it's just to say that I just don't know a lot of history, so I can't say exactly, what is accurate and what isn't. I'm just going by the film and going, judging for the film per quality. I feel like it's also worth noting also that there is a substantial amount of AI being used in this film. There's times in the movie, and I knew this going into it, that there was apparently AI used in the film, but I didn't realize to a certain extent how much was being used. And it's apparent, there's kind of a quality dip between shots, and that's where you can tell, especially with him, how the camera work is moving and just the digital framing, or the digital, factors that are at play. It's apparent that it's AI. So if you're not in support of that, just be aware that that is in there, and it's throughout, unfortunately. It didn't, necessarily deter from my experience, but I just recognized it, and they are open about it. It is something that the studio and the filmmaker, I believe, has been open about publicly. So But talking about the film as it stands, I think that there's some interesting things to note about it. For starters, I think that it's visually appealing. I think that it has a very, just kind of grounded and dirty, look to it. I mean, it's mostly, kind of muted and gray, but I think that it plays well, especially within the framework of what they're, the time period that we're in, and just the establishment of tone that they're trying to go for. I feel that visually it's kind of complimentary. Um, and it's also fairly involving. I mean, it's I would argue, a bit wordy, but I feel like it, is keeps the interest there to some extent. Even though I feel as though the foundation of it is, rather shallow, there is, a point to, its overall, to its drive. There is some interest, when it's all said and done. But as I'm starting to, weave into now, I feel the film is very, very flawed. And I feel like that there's a lot of issues that I take with it. For starters, I feel as though that it is ultimately a very shallow foundation. And I understand to what its point is wanting to make, about ambition, about leadership, how one finds leadership, the wisdom that can be discovered. All those things are apparent in the film, and I just feel as though that the bathing of that thematic idea is very shallow and to some extent also very just without much depth, and there's things surrounding the character of George Washington that just don't amount to much. There's this side plot with a love interest, which I feel which went absolutely nowhere, and I just felt in feeding to the general plot, it just didn't need it to be there. Historical wise, again, I can't tell you if that's something that was there or not, but it's just, to me, it just didn't feel like it really meant as much when it was all said and done. And overall development of characters, I feel like also is very sidelined. George, as it stands, George Washington, he starts out as very arrogant, and there's a point to that. They are trying to show you that he goes from being this arrogant figure to someone who is much wiser and is, more careful in his approach. But then the film decides to go for what is cinematic language. And I feel as though that in that vein of cinematic language, it loses a little bit of that realism or that sense of groundedness. And some things just feel just out of place. Like George Washington at some point literally basically becomes Captain America. He just runs into a battle and he'll not get shot, even though there's like 20 soldiers that are surrounding him. He apparently doesn't get shot. And the film makes a point about that, saying that, oh, well, actually, this is how he forges relationships with the natives because they, I guess, now view him as some kind of prophet. And even though the natives are pretty loose with their allegiances anyway, it's like stuff like that gets very muddled. And it creates a little bit of doubts in terms of navigation of story. And also, as I just said earlier, it's very wordy. There's a lot of speaking, a lot of like specific details being fed to you. And really, when it's all said and done, it doesn't really mean much when you're just watching things play out because it's very shallow, very wordy, but not really speaking to much depth as much as just literally just speaking, right? I also have to say, I feel that the performances themselves are very also without depth as well. I feel like that a lot of the newcomers here, they just they're not pushing it. They're not giving it to where I feel that they're really, that they're giving a lot of dimensions. William Franklin Miller. Again, I don't know if it's his feature debut or anything like that, but he's okay. He's not terrible. I think that he does a commendable job. It's fine for what it is, but you can just feel as watching it that there's more to be desired, especially with the other ones. George Washington's mother. Sorry, I didn't like her. I just felt her performance was not particularly good, and the side love interest that he also had in the movie. Both those specific actresses, I'm sorry, they just didn't work for me. I just felt that they were just not doing particularly well. I feel like that they needed to really work on, their delivery, because it just felt really flat and in a lot of ways just not believable to me. And the more veteran actors like Kelsey Grammer and Andy Serkis and Ben Kingsley, they're doing fine, but again, I think it falls a lot to the direction, because it's just not going anywhere to where the depth can be truly felt. It just feels as though that we're hanging on the surface a lot, and it feels those performances and everything surrounding that falls victim to that. So for what it is, it's okay. It's not anything remarkable. It's not anything to to really sit with. It's seriously like impactful experience. It's very ordinary. It's very shallow, and in many ways, it's very cinematic. And for what this movie is about, in some ways, it shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't have to feel like I'm watching, in some ways a superhero movie, or in some ways, some, specific kind of, specific kind of, storytelling. It should feel more grounded. It should feel more dirty and real, lived in. But it just feels theatrical, and I feel as though that in the case of, talking about an important figure like George Washington, I just don't think that really is what is required or needed. So, it's okay, and I feel like those performances are, they just struggle, and I feel a lot of that falls in direction at the end of the day, and for a lack of just innovation, or a lack of just wanting to really dive deeper. So those are my thoughts on Young Washington. I think it's okay. It's not particularly great. Again, the performances I don't think are all that great. I feel like the overall just foundation is very just without substance. So, it is what it is. It's about a man who has ambition, and he learns how to control that, and he learns how to ground himself and to be a better person and not be fueled by his ego or his own arrogance. It's essentially what it is. But I wish there was more to it. I wish there was more to be found. But you guys, what are your thoughts on Young Washington? If you guys seek it out, there's AI in it. I know there's some people who passionately do not like AI. I am not really for AI. I mean, just like I said, it doesn't affect my experience watching the movie. But in terms of just filmmaking, I feel like, especially with how they use the AI here, it's like you could have worked around that. I don't understand why that was utilized at all, really. But that's just my personal opinion. But you guys, what are your thoughts on Young Washington? If you guys have checked it out, and if you know anything about the history of George Washington, like my brother does, let me know. Were they accurate? Were they not? Let me know. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.